All right, it's 10:02, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone so much for joining today. My name is Lauren LaPuma. I am the managing editor at CIRES Communications. I started with CIRES about 6 months ago, but I've been familiar with all the amazing work we do for a long time. And welcome to everyone who's not CIRES. If you're not, that's okay. You're absolutely welcome to be here. We're so glad to have you. Our NOAA colleagues, our CU colleagues, anyone else who wanted to join. I'm so glad you all are here today. So like I said, my name is Lauren. I have been doing science communication for about 10 years. Before that, I worked in a lab doing infectious disease research. But the last 10 years, my focus has been on writing, editing, graphic design, video and podcasting, communicating earth and space science to the general public, some other things as well. One of my first science communication jobs was working for a medical association, and I covered a lot of conferences and what was being presented there, new results, new surgical techniques, things like that. So I have seen so many presentations given to so many different audiences. I also worked at AGU in the media relations department for about 6 years, helping scientists prepare presentations, especially for journalists or policymakers. So I have collectively, kind of distilled all of my wisdom and things I've learned from seeing all those presentations into this for you all. As we're coming into conference season, AGU's coming up, AMS, other conferences. So we want to give you guys the tools to have a great time at the conferences and create a great stellar presentation, whether it's a PowerPoint, oral presentation, or a poster. So we will go ahead and jump in. So what I'm going to cover today, we're going to focus on both the content of your presentation and then design elements as well. So we'll talk about how to distill your science, how to draw in an audience that's not in your field or outside of your specific niche of research, how to use visuals effectively, create a complete, clean, and compelling design. And then at the end, I'll give you guys some examples and resources, and we'll leave plenty of time for questions. And I am recording this presentation, and I will send everyone a link to the recording and the slides afterwards. So don't feel like you need to, furiously take notes if you don't want to. I will send all of this to you all in a couple of days. So the first part is to distill your science. And distill is kind of the operative word here, because when you're presenting, you really don't want to just make it an information dump. You don't want to throw in everything at your audience. You want to distill out your main points and the few things you want them to remember. So there's a couple things to keep in mind here. The first is consider your audience and your time and space limitations. We'll talk about how to start with the gist and how that really helps your audience remember and kind of orient them to what you're going to present, how to be clear, concise, and conversational, and then to simplify your message. So the first thing to consider is who your audience is, and basically what can they reasonably absorb in the time you're allotted. So whatever conference you're going to, wherever you're presenting, think about who the attendees are and who might potentially be attending your talk. It's probably going to be other scientists in your field, but it might be folks outside of your field, maybe way outside of your field. For example, at AGU, you've got space weather scientists, and you've got geologists, and you've got people who study microbes and geohealth. And so all of these types of scientists, they might be far outside of your field, but they might be attending your presentation, and they may be looking to collaborate with you or just learn more about what's going on in your research. So think about who they are and what kind of experience they have with your work or your field, so that the point here is really just to broaden, pull back the lens and zoom out and give them the proper context that they will need to be able to understand your work. And then think about how much time you have with them. And if you're doing a poster presentation, how much space you actually have on your poster. Because if you're just giving a 10-minute presentation, which is pretty standard at conferences, your audience isn't going to be able to absorb everything about your research in that 10 minutes. So you really want to think about what can they reasonably absorb, and then how to pull out the main things that you want them to take away from your presentation. So one of the things I always tell folks is to start with the gist. And this is something that we borrow from news writing. So, and the first thing to understand is how academic style differs from news style. So when when you are writing a paper or giving a presentation, you usually start chronologically. You start with your introduction, your background, the previous research, then you go into your methods and what you did in this particular study. Then you go into your results, discussion, conclusion. This is a great format, nothing wrong with it. But in the news side of things, we actually flip that structure on its head and we start with the results and implications. The point of this is to give people the outcome, the very beginning of the story. It's called the lead. We want them to know immediately what the result was, what the implication is, basically what you found and why it matters. So what I recommend is you don't necessarily need to adopt this whole news style, which what we call the inverted pyramid. But what I say is try to consider doing your presentation in an hourglass format, where we just take the gist of your presentation and you start with that, and then go into your traditional academic style. What this will do is kind of prep people's brains and orient them to absorb everything that you're going to say. So you let them know right away what it is that you're going to present to them, what you found, and why they should care about it, and then go into the details of your presentation. So just try playing around with that format a little bit. And here's an example that I've seen a lot recently with poster presentations where folks will take that idea, they'll take the gist of it, and they'll make they'll make it very large on their poster presentation in the middle. It's kind of like the result and or the implication. So for example, this is a poster by some serious scientists saying, okay, so their main gist is that the annual date of snow disappearance has the potential to estimate peak snow water equivalent. So you see right away, that's their finding, that's the gist of it, and then you can go in and read about their research. It just kind of helps orient your audience. So the next thing to remember is to be clear, concise, and conversational. You really want to talk in a conversational way. You don't want to act as if you're reading your paper. And by this, I mean you really want to use, excuse me, plain language as much as you can. Try to avoid introducing too much jargon or too many acronyms. And the reason for this is that when you're introducing a lot of new terms to your audience, even if they're scientists, they may not be familiar with your jargon or your acronyms. You know, as I'm sure you all are aware, you know, one acronym could have multiple meanings. That happens a lot in science, in government work. So if you're introducing a lot of new jargon or new acronyms to your audience, it's going to take them a while to really get familiar with what those things mean. And then they may lose the thread of what you're saying. So you want to keep them focused on your message, on your science, by trying to minimize how many new terms you're introducing. Also try to use metaphors, examples, anecdotes, or even social math to help explain your science. And social math is just when you take a number that is very large or very small or something that's kind of hard for people to conceptualize, and you compare it to something that's well known. We see this all the time, or we hear this all the time in our everyday lives when people say, oh, it fits on the head of a pin, it's the length of 10 football fields, you know, so use things like that. This is an example at the top of this slide that I had done a few years ago, where I was talking about, I wrote a story about how much whales eat and how much food whales eat in a year. And it's, you know, hundreds of thousands of kilograms of food. And that is just like a number that's kind of hard to conceptualize. So I compared it to the weight of a space shuttle. So this blue whale eats about 7 space shuttles worth of food in a year. It just kind of gives you a sense of the scale of that these animals eat. And again, try not to get bogged down into the weeds. Keep things at a really high level. Don't get too focused on the fine details. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Here on the left, this is a headline from a Scientific American study or story that came out earlier this year in July. It was a really good read if anyone's interested in it, showing that even lawyers sometimes don't understand the language that they use to communicate with each other, and that they all prefer contracts that are written in plain English. So even when you're an expert in a field, sometimes it's just better to use plain language when you can. It just makes it easier to read and more understandable, more digestible. And like I said, this is really a distillation of your key points. So you really want to simplify your message. Again, your audience is not going to be able to understand or to absorb everything about your work in just a few minutes of your presentation. When you're writing a paper, your reviewers or your readers, they have as much time as they want to go through your paper and to read it and to understand it. In a presentation setting, they don't have all that time. So you want to really start and simplify everything that you want to tell them and make sure that they take away a couple of different things, a couple things that you want them to take away from it. So if you're not sure where to start, just start with the basics. What did you do? What did you find if you do have results? And why does it matter? Why do your results matter? Why does your research matter? What is it contributing to your field of study? What is it contributing to science? What is it contributing to society? Another way to think about that is, what do we know? What is new? And why does that matter? So just think about, what is the information that you absolutely want your audience to know? Try summing up your presentation in one sentence. And remember, just include only the most relevant information. Something that we say in the news writing world is, if a sentence or a word doesn't add to the understanding of the story, throw it overboard, get rid of it. So once you've kind of focused on, once you've distilled your message and, you're ready to present, think about how you might draw in an audience that's outside your field. Because once again, like I said, a lot of people who are attending your talk or attending big meetings, they might not be in your field. They don't know all the nuances and all the fine details of your work. So think about how you could draw them in. And a couple different ways you can do this. The first is to focus on meaning rather than detail. And the best example I could think of for this is, think about if you're buying a product and you go to the website, and my light just went off. There we go. When you go to a product's website, you have the product overview and the tech specs. And I'm going to show you guys an example right now. So I'm really into photography. So let's say I wanted to buy a new camera. And let's say I was looking at this Nikon Z8 mirrorless camera. Well, I could go down to the tech specs, and it gives me a whole bunch of numbers, all the size of the image sensor, how many megapixels they are, how many frames per second it can shoot, all these numbers. Now, if I don't know that much about cameras, or if I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, all this is basically just going to be gibberish to me. I don't know. If I knew exactly what I was looking for, yes, these numbers would be significant to me. But if I don't, they're just a bunch of gibberish. So I would go to the overview, and here is really where it has the meaning of what this product can do for me. So it says, hey, it's compact, it's lightweight, it's a sleek, more portable package. It's really good for event shooting. So if I were an event photographer, I'd be like, oh, this might be a good camera for me. And then it kind of breaks this down into a little bit more detail. So just kind of think about those two different sections when you are giving your presentation, and focus on the meaning rather than the detail. Also provide some context, more context about why you're doing this particular study, why you're looking at this particular problem. Provide a little bit more background. Keywords can really be helpful here too, to demonstrate the importance or the impact of your result. For example, superlatives are always good. If something is the first, the best, the last, the oldest, the longest, the shortest, the biggest, the smallest, put those words in there if they do apply to your work, because it really does help provide context for the impact or the importance. If your work or your result is counterintuitive or unusual or unprecedented in some way, make sure you mention that as well. And show why people should care. Emphasize the value of your work, whether it's just to your field of study or to science as a whole, or even to society. There are things that we care about as human beings, living in the world that we do. We care about our health, we care about our future, we care about our identity, whether it's as individuals, as a community, as a country. We care about having clean water and clean air. So think about how you can connect your science to things that people might already care about in their lives. And then make it fun. Add in some personality if you want. Have fun with it. Give people a laugh, or just add some personality. It helps people connect with you, connect with what you're saying, and also help to them remember what you say. So if you're not sure where to start, there's some questions you can ask yourself. Just start off thinking, again, who's your audience? How much time do you have with them? What are the 1 to 3 things that you really want them to take away from your presentation? If they remember nothing else, what are the things you want them to remember? And then what's the take-home message of what you're presenting? What does all of it mean? Are there any numbers or examples you can use that are compelling to illustrate your science? Anything that you can make more digestible with social math? What are the benefits of your science to the field, to the community, to society? What examples or anecdotes or stories do you have to help explain your work? And what's really great is when you can use visuals effectively as well. So try to illustrate your work whenever you can, but make sure you don't overwhelm your audience and keep your your charts and graphs simple. So I always suggest illustrate your work however you can. Use photos, use videos, make some infographics, use sound clips, illustrations, whatever you want to do. This is a photo from the CIRES Rendezvous meeting earlier this year, where a grad student made this beautiful illustration showing her work studying iodine and how that in the atmosphere and how that relates to ozone depletion. She did a really great job here. But if you're worried that you're like not a very good artist, you don't know how to draw or illustrate, that's okay. There's many options for you. You can just do your best, and your illustrations really don't have to be sophisticated. Sometimes when they're not as sophisticated, it gives them a little more humor and makes them a little more interesting. This photo here at the bottom, this is an illustration from a blog called Hyperbole and a Half, which is really funny and cute. And this woman makes these really super simple illustrations, probably just using paint, but they get the point across and they're really cute and fun. So if you can, try illustration, and I'll also show you guys, if you're not a good illustrator, you could actually use AI to generate some illustrations or just to get ideas and to kind of get your mind rolling. But again, you don't want to overwhelm your audience with visuals either, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Try experimenting with infographics, and whether they're in your they become a figure in your paper or not. Just try to illustrate your work in whatever way you can. This is on the left. This is an infographic that was in a paper that I wrote about a couple of years ago. It's 4 different types of whale calls made by Antarctic minke whales. And this one on the left was the one that was used in the paper. And this is fine, but it really is kind of a little confusing and hard to understand because there's no color with it. And it really needs a little bit more separation between the 4 types. So what I did was I modified this, and to the version on the right, I added color. I showed a little bit more clearly the 4 types of calls and what context they're made in, when there's food present, when there's not food present, whether it's day or night. So just think about how you can take any graphic or illustration and just make it a little bit more easy to understand. And if you want to use a chart or a graph from your paper, or just showing your raw data, that's great, but keep them simple. Try not to show too many different things at once, and don't make your audience do the work. Really explain to them what your graphs and charts are showing, what they should be taking away from it. These are 2 examples from a piece of research that I was involved in about 10 years ago. These are 2 charts or 2 graphs from the actual paper. And so the one on the top, I would say, yes, this is something you could definitely use in a presentation. It's just 3 pieces of data, and the point of it is just to show that over time, this factor is changing, and it changes in 3 different ways. But it's just to show that it goes up, that this factor, this thing that we're measuring, that it goes up over time, and that it goes up, and that there are 3 different parts to it. So that I would say, sure, you can use that. This one on the bottom, this is way too complicated. There's way too many data points. I don't even know how to read this, and I was part of this research. Like, it's just a little too much. So try not to use something that's that complicated. Here's another simple graph that I think would be great to use. This came from the National Snow and Ice Data Center. This is actually available on their website. So what we're showing here is the Arctic sea ice extent. This gray line is the median from 1981 to 2010. And this red dotted one is from 1 year, 2012, which was the record minimum. So here, all we're showing is 2 pieces of data. It's really just 1 piece of data compared to the median. And the point of this is to show how much lower this was compared to the median. So it's just 1 piece of information, with the reference point. I think this would be a great one to use in a presentation. You could maybe add a couple more years on here, but I wouldn't go too crazy and add all of them. This on the right, this one is also, related to ice and snow, sea ice extent. It's just way too complicated, too much data here. Your audience isn't going to be able to absorb all of this in a couple of minutes. So I would say try to avoid something like that. And I'd also say try to avoid using tables. A lot of this data here, it's great to show it, but it's really not necessary for the understanding for your audience. Like they're not going to be able to absorb all these numbers. Just focus on the summary of it. And then lastly, really try to create a clean and compelling design. And by this, I really mean keep it simple. And that's kind of the theme of everything I've been saying today. Try to do some research, learn some of the basic principles of design, embrace minimalism, and then resist the urge to collage. So if you, kind of Google the basic principles of design, there are going to be tons of websites that all give you different examples. There's usually like 7, 8, or 10, basic principles that people talk about. So I'm not going to go over all of them here, but I'm going to kind of summarize what I think are the most important points of it, which is keeping it simple and embracing minimalism. So use a really simple color scheme. Stick with black and white or dark blue and white. Just something simple, something that's easy on your eyes. And make sure your text and your background have high contrast. So this is where you stick with black and white, or a dark gray and a white, or a dark blue and a white. This is really important for accessibility for folks who are visually impaired. And I'll show you some tools that you could actually use to make sure that your text and your background have high enough contrast towards the end. Yeah, try to avoid a background that's really busy. Try to keep it simple. You could use a photo as a background, but make sure, again, you put something on top of it that will just add some contrast and keep it simple. Try not to use too much text, especially when you're giving a slide like an oral presentation. If you have too much text on your slides, your audience is just going to be busy reading your text and they're not going to be listening to what you're saying. So keep your text light, keep it the main bullet points, and then explain in words everything that you want to talk about. Make sure you have some negative space in there as well. Don't just fill up your slides or your poster with as much information, text, and photos as possible. Make sure you have negative space in there. This keeps your audience from getting overwhelmed. And something to keep in mind too is be wary of using the full color spectrum. And I know we see this all the time, for example, in this like hurricane radar graphic I have here at the bottom. These are used all the time, especially in weather forecasting. They are beautiful, there's nothing wrong with them, but they can be difficult to read if someone is colorblind. So an alternative would just be to use shades, different varying shades of the same color or similar colors. And I'll show you a tool for that as well if you're not sure where to start. Try to use your font or typeface that is simple. Try to avoid ones that mimic human handwriting, that look like script or cursive, or that are really artistic. It just makes your points harder to read. So try to keep it simple. And remember that good design is really as little design as possible. Focus on the main things you want to communicate and really embrace the idea that less is more. And resist the urge to collage. I have seen so many people, so many presentations where slides are just full of like so many photos, or their posters just full of way too many visuals. It's just too much it'll just, overwhelm your audience. So just try to stick with 1 or 2 visuals per slide. And if you've, absorbed all of this and you think you're really at the top of your presentation game and you want to play around, take it even further, there are so many things you can do. You can play with generating graphics with AI. PowerPoint and Keynote have some amazing design elements that you can use. Play around with them. Play around with creating animations, using Canva, which is a free online graphic design software, which I'll show you guys. I've been actually playing around on TikTok and looking at some PowerPoint tutorials just to show some cool transitions. Like here's this fun blueberry one that I discovered. Just play around with it, have fun. Try to make it, just make your presentation a little bit more interesting if you're ready for it. And so I'm going to go show you guys now how you can use AI to generate some graphics. And whether or not you actually end up using them, you don't have to, but it might just be good for generating ideas if you're not sure where to start. So does anyone want to type in the chat or come off mute and give me a prompt here? Something related to your science. It could be, wildfires, volcanoes, weather forecasting, a storm, severe storm. Does anyone want to give me a prompt, and I will show you how we can generate some graphics with it. Snow cover. Okay, let's try that. We'll make it a scene. So here I am. I'm in Adobe Illustrator right now. So I go over here, I choose scene, and I'm going to put, okay, let's do snow cover. Oops, here we go. Snow cover mountains. I'll just add that just to give it a little more context. All right, we'll see what it comes up with. Takes a few seconds, but it's actually pretty quick. All right, there you go. You've got some mountains with some snow on top. I mean, I kept it pretty general, but there are different, it'll give you different variations of it. So, you could totally play around with this if you are not sure where to start. Let's try another one. What else do we have? We have extremes, wind profiling, thermosphere, ionosphere. I wonder if that will show up in here. So I'm going to try that. We'll see what Adobe thinks of that. Earth, thermosphere, ionosphere. We'll just say atmosphere too, just to help. Oh, wow, that actually, I think, was not what I expected. But here you've got like a whole view of the Earth, the moon. You've got some stuff here that could maybe relate to, the space weather environment. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, all right. We've got another one here. All right, it's not quite what we were looking for, but those are pretty specific words. So, but again, just play around with this if you want to, get some ideas, have some fun with it. Now, I'll show you a couple other things I was talking about earlier. So the measure of things, this is a really good tool for social math. So, and I have all the links to these resources in this presentation, so you guys can have access to them. But if you just go to the measure of things, let's put in, let's see, we'll try 500,000 pounds. You just put in a number, whatever it is, all right, comes up, measure of weight. It will give you a bunch of comparisons. So, all right, that's not too useful, about as heavy as a house, 1 3/5 as heavy as the Statue of Liberty, about 2 times as heavy as a blue whale. Oh, that's a really good one. It's a clean comparison. About 3 times as heavy as a space shuttle. So yeah, you can just put in numbers here. It'll give you all these comparisons. You can pick the one that you like the best. If you're interested in doing some graphic design, doing some infographics or whatever it is, Canva is a great tool. It's free, it's online. You can create a free personal account. And it has infographic templates. Let's look at that infographic. It's got tons of ideas here you can look through. It even has slide templates as well. So just, have some fun with this. Go through, see what's available. All these things are at your disposal. This tool is called a contrast checker. So this will help you see if your text and has enough contrast with your background. And I'm not going to go through all the details of this, but you put in your 2 colors. So this would be the hex code of your 2 colors. So, and the contrast ratio, and usually you want it to be above 4.5. So if I lighten this up, oh, that's not enough. But if I darken it, okay, that's plenty. So you can just kind of play around with it. You can put in all these different, you can create some different colors, put them in here and see what the contrast is. And then here's a tool called Color Brewer. So this goes back to what I was talking about in terms of using the whole color spectrum. Try using shades of color instead. So here it will actually, you could show you some examples of different shades of the same color or similar colors that you can use that are good for contrast. And you can actually choose ones that are colorblind safe, ones that are print friendly. It gives you tons of different options. So I love this tool. It's really fun to play around with. All right, so now we'll go back here. So that's most of everything that I wanted to cover. I'm just going to show you guys some examples of posters now that I have seen that have done a really great job. So actually, here's a few other tips before we get to that. So if you're giving an oral presentation, run it by someone who's not a scientist or someone who's outside your field, just to get a sense of what they took away from it, what they could absorb, what they couldn't absorb, what words might be jargon or too technical for them. Try to have 1 slide per minute of speaking time. This isn't a hard and fast rule, it's just kind of a guide. And the main point is just not to have too many slides. So for example, if you're giving a 10-minute presentation, don't have 30 slides. That's just too many to get through in the time allotted. Try to cut it down. And what I always say is, have some extra slides on the back burner. So you have slides with your fine details at the end. So if someone does have a question, you can go into more detail and go over that, but just kind of keep your main points in those first few slides. Make sure you rehearse, always very helpful. And it's also really helpful to include an agenda or an outline at the beginning in one of your first few slides, and numbers help as well, just to number every section that you're going to cover. For posters, I've seen folks have a one-pager, a handout that they can give folks who come to their poster, or have a QR code on their poster that people can scan to get more information. So those, you don't have to do that, but it's just things I've seen that I think work really well, so that someone can take something away from your poster. Think about how maybe you could start a conversation with someone who visits your poster. If you see someone kind of looking around and they're looking at your poster, but like not quite ready to talk to you yet, or not sure what to ask, think about if there's any ways you could get the ball rolling in terms of a conversation. And then separate the information on your poster into discrete sections that your eye can follow. And numbering really helps here, or using arrows as well, so that your eye knows which way the information flows. And I'll show you some examples of that as well. So here are a couple examples. These are from the Ocean Sciences meeting back in 2020. So here, this is, I really liked this one because this person separated their information into 4 discrete sections. They numbered them so you know which section goes, what the order is, and then they summarized their finding here in the center. I really liked how they did that. Here's another similar one where they summarize their finding in the middle, and then they have on either side their results, their introduction, their method. They have some figures over here as well. Now this one, I think they took it a little too far with making the gist really big. There is a lot of empty space there, and it is good to have negative space, but I feel like they could have made some of the side parts a little bit larger, but I still think it was a great poster, and they have a QR code there as well for more information. This is also one of my favorites. This person, she has her title at the top, and then a summary right here. She has the aim, what they did, what they found. Really quick, 1 sentence. They tracked the survival of this clownfish population. Some survived, some changed sex, and others just grew old. It's got some great visuals here. There's not too much text. It's really light on the text, which I love. It just focuses on the main points that they wanted you to remember. I really like this one. And here's another one. They, again, summarize the gist right here up top. There's some good map imagery here, some other metaphors here, what they call the Goldilocks zone for oysters. It's a little, some of these charts and graphs are a little complicated. I don't know that I would have included them, but it's not too heavy on the text. I like it overall. And then again, here's some resources. And some of these I've just showed you: the Measure of Things for social math, Canva. Headliner is a free online video editing software if you're interested in creating some videos and you don't have a subscription to something like Adobe. The WebAIM contrast checker. If you go on TikTok or Instagram and just search hashtag PowerPoint or Keynote or slides, whatever you're looking for, so many amazing quick tutorials will come up. A lot of those videos are 30 seconds or less, and you will learn so much. If you're a CIRES person, if you go to Inside CIRES, we have PowerPoint templates that you can use. We have logos, branding, materials, etc. And something very surprising that I've just discovered is that Etsy, if anyone is familiar with Etsy, it's a website, it's an online store where you can buy vintage and handmade things. They actually have poster examples and posters that you can buy or order. So here's an example of one that I saw on Etsy. I like this a lot. I like the color scheme. This one doesn't have numbers, but it has arrows here, these kind of tabs to point you in the right direction to show where the information flows. So another really interesting place to look for examples or ideas. Color Brewer, I showed you guys. And then the functional art, this is a book, and then there's a couple others by someone named Alberto Cairo about data visualization. So also really interesting if you're into that. And then us here, the CIRES Comms team, we are a resource for you as well. If you want to ask us questions, if you need help designing a graphic or just general design things, if you need help simplifying your message, anything like that, anything related to communications, we are here to help you. We're so happy. Come talk to us. We can give you feedback on your presentation. If you've created it, you're not sure if it's right enough for your audience, come talk to us. Email us at ciresnews@colorado.edu. We are so happy to help you all. And with that, I will open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions that they want to type? You can type in them in the chat. You can come off mute and ask them. And actually, I see one, we have one in here already. Do we have access to Illustrator through CU? I'm not sure. You may have access. You may have to, so as far as I know at CU, you can get a subscription, but you may have to pay for it through your department or through your funding. So we can talk more about that offline, but I know they are accessible. And Alea asks, are there free tools for AI generation? I am not sure. I know there's free chat or like word generators for AI, and I'm not sure about graphic design, but I will look around and see if I can find any for you. And Audrey, I see you raised a hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Lauren. That was an amazing talk. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask you if you know about the work of Mike Morrison. He was a PhD student in science communication, and I think he now is passed, earned his PhD. And I just wanted, because when you showed one of the poster example, it really reminded me of his work. And I can share link to his, so he made 2 YouTube videos to explain it's called Better Poster. I will share the last one, and then I think you will have the link to the first one he did. So he did generation 1 and generation 2, and I think the link I just sent is the generation 2 of Better Poster. And one of the things that he's saying is really look like the poster with this big title in a this big message in the middle, and then 2 columns, one on the left and one on the right side. That's his. I think it comes from his perspective of research, so that you would have one side is for someone who is a little shy and doesn't really want to talk to you, and so he gets the big message and look at the left details, the left side of the poster that give the outline of the paper, and then the right side is with more details and the actual results, and so that you can use as a presenter to discuss, like you have this information on your poster. And I found it to be, I tried to actually do this myself, and it's super cool, I think. And then you can also be creative with this. And yeah, so just wanted to share this.
Yes. Thank you, Audrey. This is wonderful. Yeah, so here is this link. This is Better Poster Gen 2. I love this. Yeah, this is kind of going along with everything I'm saying. I'm not familiar with his work, but I love this. Yes. Any other tools and resources that you guys want to share, please do. I think that will be great. And one thing, I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention earlier is, part of the reason why you don't want to put everything in your talk or on your poster is leave room for people to ask questions. Even if they may be obvious questions to you, like leave some space there for people to think about it. Don't just throw everything at them. Give them a chance to engage with you and ask some of those things. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. Do you have suggestions for talks or posters that are heavy on math? Ooh, that is interesting. I have to think about that, Kathy, and maybe we can talk offline, because, or maybe if you want to put some more detail in there. I mean, I would say try to, I wouldn't put equations up on there unless they were really simple, try to avoid doing that if that's what you mean. But maybe we could talk a little bit more about that. I feel like that would be very specific to the presentation. And Victoria asks, what tips do you have for balancing the traditional scientific presentation with adding in more personality and having more fun? Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, striking that balance it's hard, but it's kind of an art form and it's fun, you know. Maybe I can just find some examples for you. I mean, you want to really show your work, but you know, have some fun in there too, and add some personality to it. Let me think about that, Victoria. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to think about that a little bit more. Oh, and Sonia, yeah, put an AI graphics generator. That's great. I love that. Crayon. Okay, well, we'll definitely look that up. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, this is awesome. Love it. I'm gonna put in here. Let's see. Let's try snow cover again. Well, it's going. Do we have any other questions in there? Yes, Sarah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, you know, it can be challenging for things that are really photorealistic. So yeah, it's a great tool, but make sure, yeah, you everything is accurate. And what we're kind of doing now in terms of citing sources and giving credit. I'm gonna stop sharing now, actually. It's kind of a gray area right now, and there's still a lot of debate in the community. But what we're doing is we're citing AI and the author. So we say both. It was like AI generation by whatever program and the person. Oh, here we go. I'm going to share this again. Let's see. There we go. Now it generated some snow cover, and these are really more like photos rather than illustrations, but these are great. Yeah, love this. While we're thinking of any other thoughts, I'm going to give you guys a quick poll. This is just like super quick 3 questions about what you felt about this training and what you're looking for in training. So if they're just quick yes, no's, go for it, answer. And Vijit asks, are there tools to easily manipulate already made figures for presentations rather than coding everything up? You know, I'm not sure if there's like a data generate, you know, there are a couple different things you can do for that. So like you can actually use some of the Adobe products to input your data and create figures. And then you could easily manipulate it by highlighting, you know, making something more prominent, removing certain lines. You can use actually Illustrator to do that, or possibly even InDesign. So, and I can show you some of those one-on-one if you're interested in, but that is what I would say. And because some of the software that you all use to generate your charts and graphs, I'm not sure if they have that capability, but I know the Adobe ones do. And for animation, I would use something like After Effects. You can actually take a graphic that's created, a vector graphic, and throw it in there and then animate it to present one thing. Yeah, maybe I will, you know, do that maybe I'll do some research and do that as a part 2 to this for like data visualization. So, but you can definitely do it in Illustrator. Absolutely. Any other questions, thoughts, final comments before we sign off? All right, well, if that's it, you know, I will give you guys back 15 minutes of your time, of your day. Thank you all so much for joining. Again, come talk to us if you're ever have questions or want to workshop something. I sit in the DSRC 1 or 2 days a week, and then at CU campus also. So feel free to come talk to me, shoot me an email, whatever you like. Thank you all so much for joining, and I will hopefully see you all soon. Thanks again.